And welcome to another episode of Father Mahoney's House of Horrors. I am your illustrious host, Father Mahoney, and let me first welcome our new co-host. He's been on the show a few times, but now he's officially in the House of Horrors. Welcome, Cyrus Alderwood.
Hey, I'll give you the old click and shoot. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
No
Appreciate it.
problem.
I got adopted. I feel like one of those pets at the shelter.
So, how you been lately?
Hey, well, it's Halloween month. I've been doing good. It's been a crazy week with the job, but other than that, it's been a good week. I've been writing my balls off. It's been it's been good, man. So I've been trying to
Yeah,
get my a horror list together of all the horror films I want to make sure I watch during Halloween month. So
oh
we got
yeah, oh,
classics
yeah.
tonight.
Well, everybody's talking about what's on AMC this year, and the IFC is carrying a lot of classic horror movies. But to me Halloween is 12 months a year. Like I don't stop watching horror movies just because it's October or November or December. I just watch them year round. But I see what the fascination about obsessing on more horror movies during this month though.
Yeah, you got 31 days on AMC that they do, and man, they used to show some that I really like. They don't show anymore, which is really disappointing. But I own all of them anyway, so I'll just bust out some DVDs. And hey, Serena, how are you? Thanks for tuning in tonight.
Hey,
Hope you're
Serena.
in the chat.
And so like I actually started watching a show. It's been on a couple of years. I finally convinced myself to check it out. I've watched the first two episodes of the Chucky series, and so far it's all right. It's nothing fascinating, but not boring either. I got to the episode where he acts like one of the dummies that talks. Like he's like a ventriloquist thing,
Yeah,
and he's Chucky's just embarrassing the shit out of that Lexi girl. I thought that was funny as hell. Like I was like, well, this is like what Chucky would do if he wanted to like protect somebody, because he started using some curse words, and I was like, damn, like Chucky's going all in on this girl.
Chucky's going hardcore in this one. No, I haven't seen it yet. I need to check it out. I didn't know how many episodes were in it.
Yeah, I think they're. Correct me if I'm wrong, Poe. Are they starting season 3 now soon? I know it's been a couple seasons.
You're talking about the Chucky series?
Yeah.
I think the first episode's was it tonight or tomorrow? I saw Jonathan he posted something on his Facebook. I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that season 2 or 3?
I think it's 3.
Yeah,
it's 3.
I just watched the first 2 episodes from one, and I'll continue to watch it, but I kind of hope to see more gore than there's been so far. So
it being Halloween month, do you guys do anything special for Halloween? Do you dress up? Do you have like go to some con, like a horror con or?
I wish there was a horror con this year. I mean, the horror con that was in it was like the mid Massachusetts was last year, and last month. I mean, last month. It was Terracon, and I really wanted to go, but because they were going to have Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp doing a joint picture with people. So
that would be cool.
Yeah. But I didn't get to go this year.
I don't. Usually, I try to avoid. I've had issues here in this neighborhood with Halloween with like giving away candy. So like this year, I think I'm gonna stick around and do it again. But like if children really wanted like the horror of children, like frightens me. I'll tell you what would be the best costume if some kid knocked on the door and they had just like those contacts in their eyes that were solid black, and I had these black-eyed kids. Now that would scare the piss out of me. I would never do Halloween again. But I think what I'm going to do this year, I may get a red and black sweater and an old dirty hat and go as Fatty Krueger.
Fatty Krueger.
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger's older brother.
Yeah. Fatty Krueger. And just sit out on the front porch and just give away candy.
Well,
I don't know.
We were told at work that we could wear a costume if we were scheduled. And then I showed them a picture of like what I would want to wear, and they're like, no.
Yeah, they're gonna nip that one, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I don't think children will be too receptive of Art the Clown.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny, man. The
I
clown,
sent,
clowns
yeah,
are
I
killing.
sent that picture. I sent that picture to the I can't. God, I'm like blanking on his name. Um, but David Howard Thornton. Yeah, so, was it David Howard Thornton that played Terrifier? My mind is Poe.
Yes, that's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I sent him a picture of this last year, and he finally responded after like a week or so. He goes, "Oh my God, that scared the shit out of me."
That's funny.
That's
Yeah.
Hey, I saw that post you put on Facebook. I'm like, there's a customer that needs your help. You're over here messing with filters on
Yeah,
your phone.
I know. I actually reposted that like 10 minutes before the show, promoting Helvira. So
Yeah, I know. I was just messing with you though. It was
no, I
funny.
thought that was great. I saw your comment.
Sir, I'm looking for spray adhesive. Could you please stop messing with your phone?
Rob turns around. I'm looking for the devil. That's over near the paint.
Serena said, I tried to watch Terrifier and I'm such a wimp I couldn't.
You know, Serena, I'm a little nervous about clowns ever since I heard about John Wayne Gacy being real. So I have not seen Terrifier. I have not seen Terrifier.
Well, you're not a 17-year-old boy, but you're all right. You're safe.
Well, what's funny is I saw Terrifier 2 at the theater before I saw because Terrifier 1 didn't get much release from what I understand because it was such a small budget. But after Terrifier 2 was successful, they re-released Terrifier to go into more theaters, and I got to see the original Terrifier in there. So I have seen both. But
Yeah.
2 is wild. It's like
I saw part 1. It was streaming somewhere. I can't remember what app. It could have been Tubi. It could have been one of the other ones. But anyway, I watched it. I was like, holy shit, this is badass. And I saw that it was a low budget deal. And I was like, there's something to this. Like, this is going to be, I'm betting you this will take off. And part 2 came out and then just like blew up. So
yeah, and then
I saw the poster for part 3. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. No, as I was going on your sentiment. Yeah, part 3 is supposed to be coming out next year, and they're talking of like a huge, like multi-million-dollar budget. They're talking about, I think it's like $5 or $6 million budget.
My Lord.
Yeah. So imagine what they can do with that, with what they did with part 2, which is a decent budget, but it's nothing great. This one's going to be 3 or 4 times the amount of budget. So.
We'll see what they can do. Hopefully they don't mess it up.
No.
Usually when more money gets involved, the creativity part goes out the window.
I know.
I agree.
Yeah. Hollywood gets too entrenched in it, and then next thing you know, Scooby and the gang show up in a Terrifier movie. They pull the mask off, and it's Stifler from American Pie.
Yeah. Let's see who you really are.
You meddling kids.
Meanwhile, Fred's over there, Dilly and Daphne, and we don't know what's going on in those. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, if they put Daphne in the movie, that'd be great. I mean, I was always a Daphne girl, so I'm a Daphne guy. So.
You're a Daphne girl.
I'm a Daphne girl in the Daphne world.
No, I'll never hear that song the same again.
I know. Yeah, every time you hear Bobby Girl, you just hear Daphne Girl.
Speaking of like movie mashups, why don't they do Terrifier meets Saw? Now that might be interesting. Or
that'd be wild. I want to play a game. It's like, what game you want to play? Clowns or Us?
Night of the Living Dead meets Star Wars, like Luke wandering around in the streets, wondering what's going on.
Well, no, I like years ago when I was kind of more of a horny, perverted 20-year-old, when the internet was starting to get more elaborate in like searches, I actually looked up if the Exorcist was ever made into a porno movie, and well, I say in my 20s I was horny. I'm still horny, but that's beside the point.
I was about to say years ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But there is a movie called XXX or Exorcist. and
Triple Exorcist.
I actually revisited. I'll admit this. I revisited this like a couple of days ago for this show, and the dialogue is actually pretty good. Like they actually like have the whole Father Kerosene like in there, and then they have the pea soup. And okay, this is a pretty good tribute for an X-rated movie.
Talking about movies, I'm glad I've never seen that. I was thinking before the show. It's like, you know how like horror movies in the '80s, especially, are notorious for like, gratuitous nudity, like the side boob shot, or the butt shot or something here and there, and like, oh, I mean, when you're a teenage kid, like, ooh, side boob, you're all excited. But I'm thinking like the movie that one of them we're going to talk about tonight. I'm so glad that they didn't try any of that, obligatory nudity in The Exorcist, because oh my god, no, like that, like I don't care how much nudity you put in that movie, you're not going to calm me down after watching something like that. It's like, oh,
I know. Well, I looked up before which movie did you want to talk about first? Because I'll leave this one up to you since you're now the new co-host. So,
you know what? Halloween laid the groundwork for a lot of stuff, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I know The Exorcist is kind of like on Mount Rushmore, all in its own category. Like nothing has ever compared in that.
Yeah, no, I don't think nothing ever will either.
Yeah, but as far as, I guess, laying the groundwork for future, like for an entire decade of horror, really, Halloween really did it.
Okay, we can start with Halloween. I was just kind of get a feeling what you want to do first, and so just before we start talking about my Halloween shit, all prepped ready for this one. I looked up the budget for this, and it was considered an independent film at that time. So an independent film with a budget of $300,000, and it grossed at the box office $47 million.
Wow.
They said by comparison today, the 47 million would have been like 150 million plus. So that tells you how much this movie really did inspire the next 10, 15 years of slasher films.
And who knew Captain Kirk would be the face of horror?
I know, huh?
Wow.
And I looked up some interesting facts. The role of Dr. Loomis wasn't originally Donald Pleasance. They had tried two actors from the 60s. They had Christopher Lee audition, and they wanted to get Peter Cushing, but Peter Cushing was still working on a movie at the time. So I always wonder, like when we talk about like who could have been part of these movies, whether it's what we're talking about today or past episodes, you always wonder, would it be the same if these guys got the, like, say, Christopher Lee? And I love Christopher Lee, but to me, Donald Pleasance is always ever going to be Dr. Loomis.
Yeah, and didn't they have to, because of how much he was going to cost, didn't they have to film all his stuff and like as quickly as possible?
Yeah,
filming all of his scenes.
Yeah, and then go ahead.
I was going to say that probably made it incredibly difficult to direct.
Yeah, and then I looked up Jamie Lee Curtis's role was originally an actress named Anna Lockhart was auditioned for it, but who Jamie Lee Curtis's mother was a heavy influence on Carpenter hiring Jamie Lee Curtis instead. So, wow. And I looked up Anna Lockhart, and she didn't really do much in the movie industry before or after. So, I mean, imagine what it could have done for her career if she could have pulled off a Laurie Strode. Would we even know who Jamie Lee Curtis is?
Yeah, and then she was in, I think, prom night, like right after that. And those guys were lucky to get her. I mean, they said they were shocked that she came on after the big success of Halloween.
Yeah, and Terror Train too. She was on Terror Train.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. You know, when she was such a big part of that movie's success, but like you said, the character of Dr. Loomis was too. But do you ever take? I don't know. Does it ever bother you that they call this a slasher film, but you never saw anyone cut, stabbed? You know what I mean? It was
it bothered me, but I can see why, like, because of the influence that I had later on in slasher films. So I could I had a problem with it, but it's not worth fighting about. I'm not gonna like whine and cry and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is not a slasher," but it did influence a lot of slasher films.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really warrant a debate, but just the fact that that knife was in there really sort of gave it credence as a slasher film.
Yeah,
But it was, but it was so like it was so subtle, and I think that has a lot to do with Carpenter directing the movie. How you don't have to see something for him to paint an image in your mind.
yeah,
And being a writer, that's like, one of the biggest rules you have is you show, don't tell. So you can write a scene, you don't tell them that the knife goes in, but you know what I mean? But if you write a scene the right way, you're painting a picture in somebody's mind. And that's the same thing with the director, I would imagine. And
yeah.
John Carpenter, just like masterful job from everything from the directing, the casting, and the scoring. I mean, are you ever going to get that music from Halloween out of your mind, that piano?
No, and I was gonna ask that question later on about the iconic musics from both of these. I mean, the intro, the intro to this movie, and then the iconic music. It's like, almost sounds kind of like what unsolved mysteries did years later. They kind of almost
Yeah,
they kind of replicated it a little bit.
Imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah,
And but I mean, even if you come close, like that show did, no wonder it was popular because people who are looking for those kind of unsolved mysteries already they connect the dots in their subconscious, and yeah, they're going to probably tune in.
yeah,
That's pretty clever, actually. I never noticed that, but that's a good call, man. That's a good catch.
yeah. Well, yeah. When I first watched that show, I was like, I got drawn in by the music, and I think that's what people, talk about when they think about Halloween is like not just the first Halloween, the second Halloween has an amazing score too, and that always seemed to me like another character in the movie. And I don't know if you understand where I'm coming, but every time that a music hits, it's almost like a cue for you, like something's gonna happen now. So
Yeah,
to me, it was almost like another character in the film.
yeah, it really was because it was, it was that cue, kind of like back in Friday the 13th when you hear that,
Yeah,
you sort of knew it's foreshadowing, and it's its own character, it's its own beast, and that's why I think music is so important in movies, especially horror films, because it's
yeah,
so hard to find. Like we've all seen a million horror films, but
yeah,
how many can we remember the music from?
yeah. And yeah, I know there's other horror movies that use like older music as like their soundtrack, and I don't mind that so much. Like Don't Fear the Reaper is a great choice for a horror movie, but like to me a musical score is much more important. We've had them with other movies like Friday the 13th, iconic score. So to me, like, that's just important than the acting and the kills and the director, and it's just as important to have a great score.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Now, there's some really interesting things, I guess, behind the scenes about that movie, and I noticed this one time. Yeah, when I go away sometimes from my home here to work at my office in Kentucky, I'm working on a book with a co-writer, and
Yeah,
he lives over the eastern side, or I'm sorry, the western side of Kentucky. And when I drive over there, I found out something from the locals there that there's a little town. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's over near Bowling Green, Smith's Grove. All right, Smith's Grove, Kentucky. It's near a town called Bowling Green, and that
yeah,
is actually the basis for the location of the sanitarium housing that Michael Myers had in that
yeah,
film. So it's so that was like Smith's Grove, Illinois, was the town in the movie, and Haddonfield was where where they said the town was Haddonfield, but
yeah.
Haddonfield was actually um, based on the town of Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Yes,
All right, so you probably knew that being from up in that area, but so because I think it was the producer, it was she kind of named it after her own hometown,
Yeah.
And so Smiths Grove, Illinois, was the adjacent town, but it's based off of Smiths Grove, Kentucky, where there's a sanitarium.
The producer you're talking about, was that Deborah Hill?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
And because I remember reading that somewhere earlier today, but I knew about the Smiths Grove, Kentucky, because I was at a steakhouse over in that area with the guy I'm working on this book with, and that came up. I'm like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that, but apparently there was some horror fanatic that worked at the restaurant that knew it, and I thought that was pretty interesting stuff where they got the names, even though they filmed it in California, they had to make it look like a fall in the Midwest, which was tough to do too.
Yeah, and the scenery shots are amazing too. Like the camera work is done really well. Like the scene when you see Laurie walking away after seeing Tommy on the way, and you see Michael appear in the background. You don't see him; you just see a figure watching her walk away. I always loved that shot of her walking away, doing that little song. And I heard that song she actually had to come up on the spot. They said just sing something, and she's like, "What do I sing?" Because she's going. So she goes, "I just made up words," and that's the song you hear. Like, "I wish I was all alone." I thought that was funny that she had to come up on the fly, basically, with like something that sounded like a song.
Yeah, that is pretty creepy. I think that was one of the more iconic scenes. I think to me was having him in the way in the background. I was going to ask you this. I don't know this, but did they use just one guy for Michael Myers, or did they use quite a few people during the filming?
I mean, they had the one that played the kid. Then they've had the one in the mask, and then I think they have one that is the unmasked part, because I've heard him talk, the one who got unmasked, and he actually insulted the whole horror community by saying, "I can't believe these idiots pay money to get my autograph." He was quoted on saying that because he basically is seen for like 2 seconds or 3 seconds when she rips the mask off, and you see his face for that brief time while he's getting it back on. That's like his only scene in that movie. And yeah, he was quoted on saying, like, "I'll do it because like it's making me money, but these idiots, I can't believe they spend $20, $25 to get my autograph."
He could be a little bit more grateful instead of insulting his fans, I guess.
I can't remember his name, but yeah, he was quoted on saying that once, and I think in his next show, I think it affected his fanfare because the people who heard about that weren't coming to his line now, basically.
He asked for it. I mean, should be a little bit more grateful, man, instead of insulting.
Yeah. But I know he's still doing I think he's still doing the convention scene, but I'm sure because of that statement, his money making now is probably down a lot.
Yeah, talking about statements you wish you could take back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, a few guys have done that over the years. The guy who played in Texas Chainsaw, the one that played Leatherface, he insulted Gunnar Hansen after Gunnar Hansen died. He basically said, "If you love Gunnar, why don't you just go suck his balls in hell?" Like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you wouldn't have a role if it wasn't for Gunnar Hansen. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and then he's like, "Oh well, at least I was in two Texas Chainsaws, and he was only in one." Little did he know years later that Gunnar would actually be in a second Texas Chainsaw with Texas Chainsaw 3D. He has a small role in the beginning of Texas Chainsaw 3D. So.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. You ever notice when you watch a movie, there's like some interesting part you catch all the time, you don't realize you missed it the first time. You're like, how'd I miss that?
Yeah.
Since this was filmed in California, I knew that when they were doing the set, they had all these autumn leaves, right? And they were all painted. They had to bag them up after every scene and take them again somewhere else and rescatter them and all that stuff. And this is a fun fact, the guy who played Freddy Krueger, name escapes me all of a sudden. I don't know why.
Robert Englund.
Robert Englund. Yeah, Englund. He actually got hired like for one day on the set of that to go help put the leaves in places.
Oh wow.
Wall scenes. That was interesting. I read about that. But the weird thing is, if you go back and watch that, if there's something you want to pay attention to, I know Serena in the chat said that Halloween '78 was the first horror movie she ever saw. When you go back and watch it again, and we know a particular Halloween fanatic, all right, between the two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go back and watch that movie. Since it was filmed in California, there are like a couple of times you'll spot a palm tree. And like palm trees aren't in Illinois, right?
Yeah.
But it's so hard, I guess, to film around it. Maybe they didn't catch all of it in the editing. Yeah. But go back and watch it again and see if you can spot a couple palm trees.
I believe they said there's one scene when they actually catch a license plate and it says California.
Oh, I never caught that, but I'll watch that for that too.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they said that there's one scene where I don't know which car it is. Maybe it's Michael Myers' getaway car, which we can also talk about that in a second. But maybe it was that shot, because remember when she got out of the car, Nurse Marion got out of the car and ran to the ditch, and then she's looking at the car going away. So maybe that's the scene where you catch a license plate shot. I'll have to rewatch that again, because when I rewatched this for the show, I wasn't thinking about catching little bloopers or anything. I was just trying to catch up my memory, because it's probably been about a year since I watched the original Halloween.
Well, there was another little scene in there, I guess, where Laurie Strode went to investigate. She saw something behind a shrub or something and goes to look.
Yeah.
And if you watch the camera, like there's a little puff of smoke that comes up. And like I never really noticed it until I read about it, and then I watched it again. I was like, okay, there's a puff of smoke. That was John Carpenter puffing on a cigarette, and it just got in the way of this, like, come up in front of the camera. And they never. So that was him. And like nobody ever really edited that out, but like you can still see a cigarette smoke coming.
Imagine if you lit up the shrub bush.
Yeah, that would have been a blooper reel for sure, man. Too bad back then when they filmed those movies that they didn't have like all that extra money to film like they do now, where they do like the bloopers and highlights and all that stuff behind the scenes. That'd be fun to watch.
But like we talked about, it's sometimes when you have more money, you take liberties that you probably shouldn't do, because I liked the simplicity of Halloween. Like you said, you don't see a lot of gore. You have to kind of work through Carpenter's mind to imagine what it would look like if Michael, like if they went all in on Michael, made it a bloodfest. Yeah.
And like, I mean, just the I think the tone of the movie, well, that's kind of what really set off what was the tone of the 80s.
Yeah.
Just sometimes subtlety is more scary. But then Friday the 13th came along and kind of showed you what everybody wanted to see in Halloween, or thought they were going to see, but didn't see. And then I guess, I mean, that was one of the most successful franchises too. But I think when you see Halloween stacked up next to it as a franchise, it just comes to show you don't always have to go to that length to have that scare, because sometimes the scariest things are things you don't see, the things that you see in your head, not in front of you.
I noticed that the longer the series went with Halloween, you started getting more of that gore. But even like the first two, there's not really a lot of gore. It leaves the imagination to the viewer of how bad it was.
One of the scariest scenes I've ever seen in a movie is the first one, where he stabs that guy and pins him to the wall, and then he just kind of like cocks his head and looks at him, like quizzically, like he's trying to figure something out. But it's like that just shows, like, it kind of, I guess, like a dog would turn its head to the side and look at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your cat looks at you. It's like, it just shows, it was so animalistic, and that was what was creepy. It's like, I'm not looking at a man here. I'm not looking at something that's human. You know what I mean?
No.
So, and the fact that it happens in a small town, like small town America, like little Mayberry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere.
Well, and then you have Mr. Producer, if you have a second, can you look up the scene when Dr. Loomis describes what Michael is? I think everybody, that scene when he goes, let's see if I remember it. I met the 6-year-old boy with the pale, blackened eyes, the devil's eyes. That thing.
I could, but you know that YouTube will flag it, and they might.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want,
good call.
Listen. I got an idea. Okay. So, Cyrus, if you want Cyrus to read it, like he can look it up and read the line of the movie.
Okay.
You know, if he wants to do that, yeah. That way you get you know what I mean?
I totally understand where you're coming from. Because
if it's more than a couple of seconds, YouTube will be like, your video's only playable in Thailand.
I found out one way of getting around it. They said that if you pause it for like 3 seconds, like after it's playing like 5 seconds, pause it, then restart it again. But sometimes they don't pick up on that.
But you'll lose the feel. You'll lose the feel of the scene, which is an awesome scene.
Sure.
Oh, I got the quote right here.
All right.
Okay.
Here, hold on. Let me.
In your best Donald Pleasant's voice too.
Hold on, Cyrus. I'm going to find the music to go with it. So hold on.
Yeah. All right.
We can at least do that.
Okay.
I mean, there are ways to get around the comments.
All right. I'll let you know when we're ready.
Okay.
Those comic
YouTube. YouTube. We're gonna beat you today.
Yeah, there are ways around commies.
Rumble. Rumble doesn't care. We're on Rumble too, guys, and we're also on. Are we on Twitter X today too?
All right.
Sure.
We're on. Okay. Since this video will go straight to Rumble, we're not live on Rumble, but we are live here, and we're live on Doug Nut Media on X right now.
Okay.
So,
right. Sounds good. So while Mr. Biddies is looking for the music, I mean, to me, that's why I love Donald Pleasance so much. There's always kind of like a little iconic speech with Pleasance, and his voice. You could close your eyes and just hear his passion for why Michael needs to be stopped. And I think to me that's why I prefer someone like Donald Pleasance instead of like at that time Christopher Lee was a huge name. So like I mean Christopher Lee was still doing shit in like the 2000s, like, so kudos to that guy. But man, like I couldn't see him as Dr. Loomis. I see Donald Pleasance, and that's no disrespect to the guy who plays in the remake, because he's another accomplished actor, but he's not Dr. Loomis. Donald Pleasance is.
Man, we went from Hammer Films with that guy all the way to Sauron.
Yeah. What was that guy's name again? The one in the remake. He was one in Cat People.
Oh.
I can't remember his name offhand. Because I wasn't really prepping to talk about the remakes and everything. So
I wasn't. I prefer the original much better than the remake. Actually, I'm not a big zombie fan.
Musically, I like Zombie. Musically, I like. Yeah.
Musically the dude rocks. But he tries. I think he tries to remake Texas Chainsaw with every movie as gory as they are. So.
Yeah, like House of a Thousand Corpses. If that's not a Texas Chainsaw tribute, nothing else will be.
Yeah, I mean, I love that 70s vibe. And that's one of the things that Halloween had. I mean, that decade and this, the other movie we're going to talk about tonight, same decade, there was some really great, just like underrated stuff that comes out of that decade. So this month, as I'm watching Halloween movies, not no pun intended, but just like creepy movies for this month, half of them come from that decade. I'm looking at like Dario Argento's Suspiria, which was really great. The scoring in that was awesome. So that just quite a few movies from that decade that you'll never replicate if you try to. There's no point in it,
Yeah, speaking of that is not saying that this show's over, people. I'm just saying that the next episode of House of Horrors, I'm actually going to put a poll up on a couple of my groups, and you guys are going to choose what the topic will be. So even if it's a movie I haven't seen, I'm gonna have to like find a free streaming service or something, and we'll go to town on those two movies. But this is our Halloween series because it is October. We have to do Halloween, and we have to do our next one, that The Exorcist. So,
Oh yeah, the two most iconic films in the genre.
yeah.
But
Of all the even the subgenres, these two are the standard bearer for all horror.
yeah, I mean, if you want to say
Yeah.
you want to segregate it by decade, dude, the two top horror films of the decade easily, I think.
Easy.
Yeah, and of all
Yeah.
time, and just it's crazy. One just happened to have a lot more influence on the whole genre than the other.
Yeah. I mean, like this one, like you said, it spawned so many different movies, and even the director of Friday the 13th has admitted that they stole a lot of stuff from Halloween.
Yeah, flattery, man. Again, the best form of imitation is
Yeah.
best form of flattery, and it's good stuff, though. Really good stuff.
And,
Hey, while we're
and
waiting-
I'm gonna probably trigger some Jamie Lee Curtis fans right now, but to me, the most important character in the whole franchise is Dr. Loomis. To me, he is the one that's trying to stop it. He's the one that warned Smith Grove about how dangerous he was, and nobody listened to him. So he's the only one that ever really knew the real Michael.
you know that film was made in 20 days.
Yes.
I found this list here due to Halloween's huge success. This is off of Screen Rant.
Yeah.
It inspired a slew of holiday-themed horror film knockoffs, including Friday the 13th, Silent Night, Deadly Night, April Fool's Day, New Year's Evil, and My Bloody Valentine.
I mean, and talk about all other iconic movies there too. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure in the Christmas time we may review that Silent Night, Deadly Night, because once again, if you're talking Christmas movies, that's the standard bearer. Everybody compares like movies now who are trying to do Christmas movies. They always get compared to Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, and it says here that Halloween wasn't actually the first slasher movie ever set on a major holiday. That honor instead goes to Bob Clark's 1974 Black Christmas.
Yes. And that may be another one that I haven't seen Black Christmas in a very long time, so I'm probably going to have to revisit that because that may win one of our polls. I'm pretty sure it will because that's considered like a top 20 horror movie. Yes, arguably a top 10, but easily a top 20.
It says while his face was never seen, Nick Castle, his contribution to Halloween was pretty immeasurable. Wasn't really a great actor, well known, but he inspired. Yeah, he said moviegoers all over the world. He went on to. This is interesting. I didn't know this. Nick Castle, the guy behind The Mask, went on to work behind the scenes in a lot of other movies, co-writing screenplays from Escape from New York. With Carpenter, as well as directing films like The Last Starfighter and Dennis the Menace. He also performed alongside Carpenter and Halloween producer Tommy Lee Wallace as the Coup de Ville musical group, best known for playing the title and theme music for Carpenter's cult classic and one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
Did not know that.
Yeah, that's a iconic movie, and for you viewers, we're gonna have a new theme coming up within a couple of weeks where we do a few shows about horror movies, and then we're gonna have an off-topic show, and it's gonna be either a different genre of movie or maybe some wrestling or maybe some hair metal. It's gonna be a little bit different on the 4th show, so we'll have 3 consecutive horror movie shows, and then we'll have an off show. So maybe Big Trouble in Little China may show up in one of our shows because, like you, Cyrus, that's one of my all-time favorite movies. I could watch that movie like start to finish, take a 5-minute break, and then rewatch it again.
Oh no, I could live my day quoting that movie in conversation with the people. People have no idea, but one of the funny things I guess about. Actually, I was going to ask you this about Carpenter. Um, he's done so many good things, and I guess Halloween was his one of his biggest achievements and what it spawned
Yeah.
for decades. I wonder who were some of his influences. I know he probably was maybe influenced a little bit by Black Christmas, but I wonder if, like, I don't know. Have you ever read who some of his influences were? Maybe Hitchcock? Or...
No, I really did, but I know he did love Hitchcock, and it'd be funny if you saw like John Carpenter pop up in like a cameo scene every movie like Hitchcock did. But
Yeah.
but I could easily see him being influenced by Hitchcock, because Hitchcock was very into that, like, show but don't, I mean, tell but don't show. He like with Psycho. Psycho to me is a top 5 horror movie. Like, I cannot wait to tackle. I think we might have to do a show on the whole series of Psycho, not that crappy remake with Vince Vaughn. But I should say retelling, because it doesn't change anything about the original Psycho.
Yeah, no one's going to touch the original. Not with Anthony Perkins. Some
No,
actors
Anthony-
are just meant to play a role, and
Well, what's funny is years ago we used to have actually, I think it's still going on, Spooky World. And Spooky World is a Halloween theme park that comes around our area every like Halloween time. It starts in September and ends like the first week of November. Well, they used to invite horror actors, people who've been in horror movies. The very first Spooky World had Anthony Perkins, and this was like a couple years before he had died. And I couldn't go. I was deathly sick. My sister was going. So my sister brought me back an autograph, and I wish I still had it today, of Anthony Perkins saying, "Hey Rob, be good to your mother. Love Anthony Perkins."
oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, there are little elements, I guess, I didn't really think about this till just now, but in Halloween, like you were talking about that scene earlier when in the background he's kind of behind the bush, he steps out and you just see that in the background. That has like and I love like old classic black and white Hollywood films. I'm a huge Bogart fan, but like, do you ever get like a little hint of like film noir out of what he's doing?
Oh.
Yeah, there, you're back.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you ever see like maybe like a little hint of film noir in Halloween?
Yeah, I do. I see a lot of like older techniques used in Halloween too. Maybe that was because of the budget that they had, but I definitely get a feel that it's heavily influenced from earlier films.
I wonder if he, yeah. I mean, like Serena said in chat here, Hitchcock for sure. He was probably inspired by or influenced by. I wonder, like before Orson Welles took off to Europe and stayed over there because he got so offended here by Hollywood and got railroaded. I wonder because Orson Welles is doing some really edgy stuff. I wonder if maybe some of that kind of rubbed off on Carpenter.
I mean, I'm sure they did, because even today's directors have their influences too, and sometimes you see a little bit of that in their filmmaking. So I think as a director, you have a vision of what you want to do, but you also kind of, in a way, you're kind of paying homage by doing other shots. You're paying homage to the people that paved the path before you were there. So yeah, I can see that.
Kubrick would slip that in a lot in his films.
Yeah.
And I could probably see, because Kubrick was really well established at that time, but it took a little while for John Carpenter because he kind of come along a little later. But I could probably see him doing the same thing. Yeah,
speaking of Kubrick, I got to see Full Metal Jacket in theater. So yeah, that was a great experience. I left that theater like going to my friends the next day. It's like, hey guys, we have to go watch this movie, and I pretended like I didn't see it before. Because they're like, well, you already saw it. I was like, so I kind of kept it a secret, but I was like, yeah, a buddy of mine told me this is like the best movie ever made, and so I dragged them to the and I did that with 2 other movies. I did that with Pulp Fiction, and I did that with Natural Born Killers, and I did that with Natural Born Killers, and I brought them different friends this time to the theater, because those two movies, I believe they came out the same year, and I was like, oh my god, like these are messed up movies.
Wow. Yeah, I mean they really are. Yeah, I guess you said Jamie Lee Curtis almost didn't get the part.
Yeah, some actress named Anna Lockhart, and I looked up her IMDb. She has done other stuff, but nothing like that stands out. Like I can't even remember what it was, but it kept saying Lori Lockhart, and I'm like, no, Anna Lockhart. So I had to like type it in because I guess she's not really that known. So, but Anna Lockhart was originally auditioning for the role, and then Jamie Lee's mother was like, no, like my daughter wants to be in a horror movie. So basically, like she kind of pulled a little stroke, and Carpenter was like, yeah, okay, let's give her a try. And I guess Carpenter was pleased on what he saw, and well, Jamie Lee became Laurie Strode.
Huh. So she pretty much did for her daughter what Eli Manning's dad did for him, keeping him out of San Diego. All right.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I remember they would get they had drafted Eli Manning, and I remember when Eli came on the stage, it looked like he was like on a death penalty. He looked like he wanted to hang himself right on stage. And then of course the trade happened, and well, the rest is history. He became a giant.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Like you said, Anna Lockhart, and I knew I've heard that name before, so I just like typed her in real quick.
Yeah.
And see where I heard it. And like I mentioned, I like a lot of classic films. She's the daughter of June Lockhart. And I don't know if you know who she is.
Yes, that's another name that came up when I was saying Anna Lockhart.
Yeah, Christmas Carol, Meet Me in St. Louis. I think she did some Petticoat Junction. I don't know if you remember that show. That was a big show. And then Lost in Space. You remember that from?
Yes. Oh, that's where I knew her name from. Lost in Space.
Yeah. So she's. Yeah, I used to.
So she's another one that probably could have pulled stroke too, but like everybody knows Psycho. Like even people who haven't seen it know the name Norman Bates. So I think maybe her influence was probably a little bit heavier.
Yeah, and and no wonder she kind of went into wanted to do some horror because her mom. One of the last things, I guess, well, it wasn't one of the last, but in the late 40s, when a lot of those horror films are coming out, those I guess flashy B type horror films we call today. She was in this one called. I remember seeing this actually. I think I maybe had this DVD. She was in something called She Wolf of London.
Oh yeah.
So if you ever get a chance to watch one of those old monster films from that era, she was in that. So anyway, I thought that name sounded familiar.
Okay.
But she had some stroke too, man. On a scale of 1 to 10, how the fear meter? What would you give this one?
A fear meter. I think I was more afraid of the scenario of being a babysitter. This is just like Jaws. This was like a movie that kind of like scared girls from wanting to be a babysitter, because if you know this, it was originally called The Babysitter Murders. And
I don't know that. Okay.
Yeah, the original working title was called The Babysitter Murders, and some reason I don't know why they didn't go with it, but they thought more of a direct approach, I guess. So Halloween, of course, it's a holiday that people, that has a lot of urban legends and a lot of myth to it. I think they kind of went with that title instead, but yeah. So, but they were all babysitters. Like she was babysitting, and her friend was babysitting across the street, and think of being a 15, 16-year-old girl who wanted to take care of kids to make extra money. Imagine them seeing this and they'll say, "Oh, fuck no."
Oh yeah, if they would have went with that original title, parents for the next 15 years would never have date night. And that would be a dark shame.
Yeah, but as long the way that the original 6 movies went, of course we're gonna exclude 3 because 3 wasn't part of the Myers universe. but the original 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, created a great storyline, and they carried that on for a while. And I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think the whole rebooting, the retelling, the cutting off other sequels, I think it's ruined the franchise, honestly. And it's too bad because
I mean, there were some good ones. I haven't watched all of them in that franchise, but there were some good ones, and there's some that I got about 20 minutes into, and I'm done.
Yeah. And we're not going to trash anything right now, but we're going to just say I like the simplicity of storytelling where it continues to another movie, to another movie, to another movie. Like Friday the 13th did that for a while. In part 2, they're sitting around the fire. He's telling the story of Jason jumping out of the lake, and there's been, he told the whole haunted, spooky story that some people have seen him around and blah blah blah. And then you hear that kind of like every movie you talk about. You hear a lot about Mrs. Voorhees through part 3, part 4, part 5. So like I like that kind of franchise where the storyline continues and you don't like miss anything. Because think of someone who wants to get into horror movies today, right? So you introduce them to Halloween, they love it, so they watch 2. Then they're kind of confused by 3. Then you explain to them, okay, it was supposed to be all different movies, blah blah blah. Then they continue at 4, 5, 6, and okay, and then H2O comes out, and you're like, okay, where is them talking about Danielle Harris? Where are they? Why is she have a son now? And you have all these questions because they only recognize 1, 2, and H2O, and then Resurrection, and then Rob Zombie decides to take over, does his thing. And then all of a sudden, Jamie Lee Curtis like, oh, I want to play Laurie Strode again, but I don't want to be Michael's sister anymore. And I'm like, so imagine yourself as a new horror fan trying to follow all these different timelines.
It's too confusing.
Yeah, it's too confusing for a new viewer. Luckily, we grew up watching this, so we understand it. But any luck finding a new viewership, good luck with that, because they're going to be totally like, what's going on here?
Hey, we Gen Xers by nature have to go backwards. Think about this. One of the biggest franchise movies of all time, Star Wars, started with parts 4, 5, and 6. Then we have to go back. So, like, we never get anything in order. So I guess maybe we're just wired that way a little bit, Yeah. I'm so glad that Jamie Lee Curtis had such a really good working relationship eventually with John Carpenter, because she went on to do some other stuff with him. And like one of my favorite of all time movies, The Fog.
Yes.
And she was in that, and she was great in that. So I'm just glad that relationship worked out, because she was such a good actor. And I'm glad she wasn't typecast into horror films, because she's had an amazing career doing so many things. Fish Called Wanda, Trading Places. Not only was she good, but she's in action movies. She's funny. So I'm just glad
True Lies was great.
Oh, awesome movie. Awesome movie.
Yeah.
But I'm glad. Hey, producer, did you find that tune?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, I did.
All right.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be funny to do it as a kind of segment thing. I call it the House of Horrors Theater. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see. Sorry. I got to share it.
Viewers, for the first time ever, Cyrus Alderwood as Dr. Loomis.
Yes. Hold on. Let me get it here. I almost pulled up that other video.
Hey, we can't play porno.
All right. Hold on. All right. Volume's up. Can you hear it, Cyrus?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. You're on.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, even in the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with his blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up. because I realized what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I'm going to win the Academy Award, fellas.
And for Academy Award, Cyrus Alderwood.
Serena had a couple of things in the chat. If you want me to read them off real quick, so she don't feel left out.
Please.
She said, Halloween '78 was the first horror movie she ever saw. She agreed with Rob about Christopher Lee, but Donald Pleasance is just Loomis. I mean, yeah, he is Dr. Loomis.
Yeah.
Prom Night was the second movie she ever saw.
Wow.
And then y'all were talking about the Christmas stuff. She said, or Black Christmas, the Christmas horror movies.
Yeah.
And dude, there are some horror movies out there with a Christmas theme. It's not necessarily like, you know what I mean? Like, or it's not Christmas theme. It happens during Christmas, but it's a horror movie. Yeah, it happens during Christmas, but it's a horror movie, and it doesn't advertise that it's Christmas in it. You know what I mean? So I'll have to share a list with you on that because it's pretty interesting. There's some horror movies I've been watching right now, and there was one that showed up. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't know this happened during Christmas. Like, I didn't know one of these movies took place during that time. So she loves Psycho and Hitchcock. And she goes, I love how in H2O, Janet Leigh had a small part and they played the Psycho music and she got into the old car.
Yeah, she had the Psycho car in that scene too.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So there you go. There's her chat.
Again, paying homage. Hey,
thank you, Serena.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in for us tonight. Hey, Poe, I was going to ask you this, man. When you look at some of these crazy Christmas themed horror films, you ever seen Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg?
Okay, I have not seen that one. I've seen clips of it and it looks insane. So I got to see that. I haven't seen that. But there was one movie I remember it was called, I want to say it's called Mother or Mom. And the mother gets attacked by a werewolf and she turns into a werewolf. But this happens during Christmas time.
Okay.
All right.
And then
so American Werewolf in Christmas.
Yeah. And then another one's called The Brain. And that happens around Christmas with a giant killer brain. Yeah. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I went into these movies blind, you know, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did I not know these existed? You know, we always talk about Silent Night, Daily Night because that's the easiest one because of the controversy. And I got my opinions on that, and I'll save them for if y'all ever do that because anyway. But these other movies, they take place in that, you know, in the holiday season, but they're not like, you know what I mean? You wouldn't know it if going into the movie on the covers of these things, anything. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, Adam Marcus a couple of years ago did a independent Christmas movie called Secret Santa, and talk about an insane movie. I was hooked. It's like a whole family that gets together, and basically everybody in the family kind of hates each other.
Yeah,
and it spills over to like people getting killed, and like they're trying to figure out who's the one that's killing everybody. And I'm like, wow, this is a fucking great idea, but it never lets up. The whole movie is just chaos through the family. I was like, I messaged Adam, like,
to check that out.
Dude, I was like, dude, that's a fucked up movie.
Oh man, I'm going to tell you guys one more weird little thing about Halloween. We've been talking about the scoring, right? How fun this was, how that music's so iconic.
Yeah.
But I was reading that Carpenter said that when he composed that himself, he was actually inspired by Tubular Bells, which is the theme to The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And he was also said it was a soundtrack work by these Italian progressive rockers called Goblin. So he used some of that music theory he learned as a child. He said his dad used to have him do this little rhythm exercise that he would beat out on the bongos when he was like just a kid. And he said he kind of went back to that, and then the Tubular Bells, and that that progressive rock band out of Italy that he had heard. And he's like, okay, we just took this little theme, and it was so simple.
Yeah.
And took it on, just put it on piano, and that was it. Yeah.
Well, it shows how much you can do. Too, back in '78, they didn't have a lot of the technology, so they relied on practical effects, but the simplicity of the practical effects too. I think it would be different if they had like a bigger budget. I think it wouldn't hit as hard because, to me, what they did with the budget they did, it was incredible. It was totally incredible, and like we said earlier, it stands the test of time, even today. New fans of horror are into that first Halloween movie because it's the musical score, the lighting, the effects, everything that was involved in making this, you can see as a first time viewer.
I guess as far as Ozzy and Jack Osbourne on their show on the Woogie Boogie scale, I'd probably give this about an 8.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Is that the traveling show that they had?
No, it's the Osbournes Want to Believe.
Okay, there was a show that Jack Osbourne did with Ozzy that they would go to famous sites.
Yes, that was called World Tour. Jack and Ozzy. Yeah. I love those shows, but they have one where it's Jack sitting out with his parents, and he shows them these paranormal clips, and they give it a scale of 1 to 10 on the Woogie Boogie scale. Yeah. So I think it's kind of funny, but yeah, on the fear scale of this, I give this about an 8 because not only it's not the most terrifying thing you'll ever see, but it's so iconic and it was groundbreaking at the time, and we wouldn't have all the stuff we have in that genre today if this particular movie did not succeed.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. On a fear scale, I don't think I answered that one. I'll stand with you at 8. Like you said already, that there's other movies that can scare you a lot more than this, but to me, the atmosphere, the scenery shots, the music, to me it still stands the test of time. Like I could still watch it today and still be as awestruck as the first time I watched it.
Yeah,
and I'm probably in the hundreds now of watching that movie.
Wow. Okay.
Obviously, you don't keep track. You don't say, "Oh, this is my second time. Oh, this is my third time." But if I had to put a number on it, it's probably in the hundreds.
I've probably seen Halloween anywhere between 15 and 20 times, easily. Not as many as you, but my goodness, man. But that tells you that I've seen some movies like Star Wars a lot more than that, or Big Trouble in Little China. But it tells you how a movie has staying power if you're willing to watch it more than 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Anybody.
I mean, 45 years later, that's what we haven't talked about. This is 45th anniversary of Halloween.
Yeah.
And man, 45 years and it still has the same effect. I mean, that's telling you something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's other movies. I think you mentioned Prom Night. And I love, don't get me wrong, I'm going to say something not so good, but I love Prom Night to death because I grew up in that era. But to a new viewer, I think Prom Night would look dated to them because it's they have the disco music, and I think it would have that older feel, and I don't think it would hit as hard as someone watching Halloween for the first time. So
yeah,
I mean that's just my opinion, but it doesn't derate from my love of it. I still love it because I did see it when I started watching horror movies, and I've told that story a billion times how I got into it, so I'm not going to reiterate it, but I mean that was one of the first, I would say, first 10 movies I saw. It was Prom Night. So
yeah, that was a good film. It certainly was, but it wasn't I wouldn't say Jamie Lee's best, but was entertaining. I don't like the trash films. I never do, because I know some people like them. And you have people who, I mean, their lives are working on these sets. I'm not going to go rip somebody apart for the job they do or whatever. But it was was it stand up with all those? No, but her work in Halloween, her work in so many other things, and Prom Night was entertaining.
Yeah,
I've watched it a couple times. I enjoyed it.
Well, to me, I stand there with you about the not trashing films because, you know, I'm going to go all in right now for a second. So there's a group I'm part of called Halloween Fans, and if anybody's watching Halloween Fans, I'm sorry what I'm about to say, but y'all some triggered motherfuckers. Um, every day I get updates from them. It's like, uh, why did Michael kill Ori? Why couldn't we take away Halloween 3? Why it's like, and then they use the word hate like it's a good thing, and I was like, I reserve the word hate for like real life events. When the Twin Towers came down, I hated that. When someone gets killed or molested, I hate that. I don't ever use the word hate for how I didn't like a movie. I just say I don't. That wasn't my cup of tea, or I just didn't like that. But I cannot use the word hate on a movie because these are people that are really trying to entertain us. Yeah, not every horror movie is perfect, obviously, but these are people who the working actors, working actresses, people behind the scenes who are really trying their best to give us something that we like. And if it doesn't work, I can never say sorry. I hated that. I just can't. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you on that. It's I'm not, people, I mean, that's their job, it's their livelihood. And not every story is going to resonate with everybody. I mean, I write novels. I tell people, like, hey, if you like my book, I'd love if you go to Amazon, leave a comment and a ranking. If it sucks, just don't tell anybody, right? Like, don't ruin it back if you don't
yeah.
like the story. It's because some of the stuff I write's not for everybody, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And
And
some
that's okay. Exactly. That's okay because someone else might love it. And that's another debate that every day they're like, oh, I love Halloween 4. Who else agrees? And I'm like, the way you phrase that is, you're trolling people. You want people to hate it so you can argue with them. It's
yeah,
like, so I never get involved. I was just like, I love them all for different reasons, or
yeah,
I like most of them, and the other ones, I can still watch, but I'm
yeah,
always trying to be like the one putting a positive spin on their questions, and a lot of them hate that. They hate like, well, why don't you hate like for? I'm like, I didn't say I didn't like for. I didn't say I hated it because I don't use that word hate. I enjoyed it.
yeah. It's yeah, each person has different tastes. That's okay. And I
Yeah,
mean, I have opinions about movies too, and books, and like I'm just not so self important. I think my opinion's the only one that matters. That's okay.
exactly,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah,
we all agreed we'd live in we'd be a bunch of commies, but we don't. It's okay.
yeah.
Hey, Serena made a good point here. I didn't know this. Did you know that Wendy from Prom Night has a cameo in Halloween 2? She plays Karen's friend. She has to give a ride home to. I didn't know that. Good
Oh,
catch.
I know the character she's talking about. I think she's the one that like didn't have time to drive her to the hospital, and then she's like, "You promised." Is that the scene, Serena? Where she's like, "You promised to take me to work," and then you see them driving kind of past Michael Myers because Michael Myers was near that sign where it says Haddonfield Memorial. I think that's the scene she's talking about.
Yeah, could be. Um, but no, that's a good catch. I didn't know that, but
Good
yeah,
catch, Serena.
yeah, she said yes. That's the scene. So,
Okay.
um, hey, you want to move on to?
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna have nightmares after this next discussion. But let's do this.
So we're gonna talk about the 1973 classic, which, by the way, I missed in Vegas. They replayed it on my birthday, and Rob had to work. So, now 1973, The Exorcist. Now, talk about a movie that stands the test of time.
Yeah, this might be one of the most horrific and visceral things I have ever seen, and
Yeah.
many people have tried to duplicate it, but no one can. I
No.
mean, they try to pay tribute and homage, but of all the movies, yeah, I mean, some have done well, but none have come close.
No. And off the top of my head, I know people are trying to compare The Conjuring, and I have no hate on The Conjuring, but it it's not The Exorcist.
And which I guess, yeah, I mean, I think some people, and when they do the demonic possession films, they try to outdo one another for like scare factors, shock factors.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that makes The Exorcist so stand the test of time is this was done in an era before CGI where things could look faked.
Yeah.
And so we're just so used to CGI now. It's like, yeah, I can see how they did that. They didn't have this back then, and it looked so real. It was like you were sitting in the freaking room watching this. Now, for those of you who have never had the stones to sit down and watch this, Rob, I'm just going to give like a quick overview of what this film is.
Okay.
All right. Again, this is this 12-year-old girl named Reagan McNeil. She's played by actress Linda Blair, that many people know. Now, I imagine most people watching this, Rob's probably seen this, but for the handful maybe that hasn't, this little girl, she begins to experience these like night terrors, right? So she's having these bad dreams. She's been actually playing with a Ouija board, and her mother doesn't know about.
Yeah.
And her friend on the Ouija board is Captain Howdy.
Yeah.
Which later on we come to find out, even though the name was never mentioned in the movie, we come to find out it's this demon called Pazuzu.
Yeah.
So she starts levitating, breaking out in sores, talking in this low demonic voice. She got like, I don't know, like super strong, right? So her mom, which is played by
Ellen Burstyn.
Ellen Burstyn. Okay, man, I'm drawing a blank on some of these names. But her mom takes her to the doctor, tries to get these people to help her, try to find out what's wrong with her. They go through all these brutal tests on this girl, and she's getting worse and worse and worse. And so none of it works. They get this little girl home, and the mom eventually, who's an atheist, goes to this guy by the name of Father Cyrus, a local priest, and tells him, hey, I think my little girl's possessed by the devil. And so anyway, he goes to investigate and things like that, and she just progressively gets worse and worse and worse, and it gets more horrific as you go. So in the end, you see this guy who was like the old man in the very beginning of the movie, Father Marin, shows up out of the blue, right? And that's that iconic poster. This old man gets out of a taxi and he's standing there underneath that street light.
Oh, I love that artwork.
That has got to be some of the best artwork in cinema history.
Yeah.
And so Father Marin, who's played by Max von Sydow, who, by the way, he looked like he was an old man. He played a great old man, but he was only 44 at the time he did this.
Yeah.
So he goes in to save the young girl. Spoiler alert, Marin has a heart attack. Father Cyrus is still battling this demon, starts choking the girl. He can't get it out of her, and he tells it to come into him.
Yeah.
And then he jumps out the window and goes down those iconic stairs.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that's actually on the historical landmark now. I don't know if you knew this, but because of that movie, those stairs in Georgetown, they've got a plaque up, and it's got like Friedkin's name on it, and the guy Blatty, who wrote the book.
Yeah, William Peter Blatty.
Yeah. So anyway, they didn't have any of the modern day tricks that you do in cinema, but they had so many crazy behind the scenes stories that are just horrific.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few things that a lot of people generally don't know about this, and from how Linda Blair got the role to people that were associated with the film mysteriously dying. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. So anyway, Rob, I'm gonna pass the torch to you because I'm gonna have nightmares just recalling this now.
Well, I have some numbers here. So for 1973, the budget was, get this, $12 million. For 1973, that's a huge budget. But here's a bigger number: the grossed $441 million. Yeah, this is for 1973. And here's a fun fact also, and I confirmed this with my one of my older sisters. That was her first movie she ever saw at the theater. And when she went to the movie, they handed her a barf bag because they didn't know how people would react to the pea soup scene. And here's another fun fact that I found out, that that pea soup scene was originally supposed to hit Jason Miller, who played Cyrus, in the chest, and it backfired and hit him in the face. And they decided to keep that because they thought that would be grosser. The fact that vomit just went into like his face and mouth.
Yeah, and he had I read he was like had a phobia about crap like that, so they only filmed it once.
Yeah,
Never
and
did that scene again.
that because of his reaction too. That's why they kept it, because it was like that's a real reaction of him like getting like basically grossed out. And that to me, that every time I see that, that still grosses me out to this day. And it's simple as pea soup. That's
Yeah.
that's all they use. But if they made it look so effective, it looks like vomit.
It looked like a demon threw up on you. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it
yeah,
looked like. Yeah. Now, do you do you know a lot about the backstory, like the real story behind The
yeah.
Exorcist?
Back in 1949, I think I sent this to Mr. Producer. It was a young boy, but I can't remember where it was that had an exorcism done. So
St. Louis.
it was influenced by that story.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm wrong, Poe. Tell me. It was about this boy. It happened near D.C., but in the 1950s, a 14-year-old boy from a D.C. suburb, Mount Rainier, Maryland.
No, it was it says what Rob sent me. It said 1949 exorcism of a young boy from Cottage City, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then he eventually moved back to St. Louis, and that's where they went back to, right, to do the exorcism.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Creepy, man. Did you read a lot of this backstory too, Poe?
No, it's been a while. Well, I was on another podcast and we kind of talked about the Exorcist and we had a director on. He's an independent director, but he knew a lot about it and he read he read the book and he knew about, William Blatty and all that. I mean, he was like all into it. So, I mean, yeah. We covered it extensively that movie, but no, I didn't read into the story or the true story of it or anything like that.
Well, I was dumb enough that not only did the movie scare the piss out of me, I decided to go look at the book too, which was not a good idea. It's probably ruined about 5 years of my life, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's kind of a similar story. The boy's family tried everything they could to save this kid. They went to doctors, psychiatrists, all this other stuff. Had an unsuccessful exorcism. So one night when they were in Maryland, right, where they were at, these welts started appearing on this kid's back, and it spelled the words "go" and then St. Louis. So they moved him to St. Louis, where they met this Jesuit priest, and there was a Jesuit priest and then a reverend of another denomination. I can't remember their names, but this is like this famous 3-month exorcism apparently took place. And if you watch some of these like ghosty shows where they talk about this case will come up from time to time and they'll talk about it because it was notorious, and it was all over the Washington D.C. area. And so anyway, that's what had happened. That was sort of the backstory, and that's where he got the idea. William or Blatty to go ahead and write this book, William Blatty. And then when I guess the guy William Friedkin saw the book and decided he wanted to interpret this for the screen, and they were going to call it. I think the book was called something else, but then they changed the title, I guess, to The Exorcist.
Yeah,
and that was when all the like Rob said, then they got a good budget and all this because they wanted this to be a groundbreaking horror film. And
they succeeded in that.
yeah. Now I know Friedkin was the guy who directed it, but there was like this big battle because Blatty wanted William Friedkin to do the film.
Yeah.
And then the Warner Brothers, they wanted Stanley Kubrick because we brought him up earlier.
Yeah.
He had just come off of I see they sent him a script out of Clockwork Orange. And so, I mean, Kubrick was doing great work. So they wanted Kubrick.
Yeah.
And they were like bugging the piss out of Kubrick to do this. Well, Kubrick ended up telling him no. He said, I only like to develop my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so I guess at that point, Friedkin had a hit that came out in 1971 called The French Connection.
Yeah.
And it was a big hit. And when they saw that, they're like, okay, well, we want Friedkin. So I guess they sort of settled for him, but it would be a totally different movie if Kubrick had gotten a hold of this.
We want that freaking guy.
Yeah, that freaking guy. Get that freaking guy in here. But yeah, could you imagine what the movie would have been if Kubrick had done it? I mean, it wouldn't have been nothing like this.
No, and like we talked about, we love Kubrick, but like I don't think it would have the same staying power or the same influence that it has even up to today. 50 years later, by the way, people. 50 years later, this movie still scares the piss out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
That tells you how much it stands the test of time.
If horror films generally make you nervous, watch this one in the daytime.
Yeah. I watched this reactor that she hates horror. Her name is Kat, and she hates horror movies. That's her tagline. She goes, "Hi, I'm Kat, and I hate horror movies." And she gets all these suggestions of movies that she needs to watch. Her first one was The Exorcist, and I'm sitting there going, "Boy, you're about to get a crash course in horror movies."
Oh, that girl's never going to be the same.
Yeah, but 2 years later, she's doing it, and she still has the same tagline, but kind of secretly, she actually loves it now because she talks. Now she uses references. She goes, "Oh, did they get that reference from this movie?" Like, and I'm like, "Okay, now you're getting it. Now you're getting what it means to be a horror fan."
To be a horror fan, there's just as much humor behind it as there is terror. Yeah. We live in a crazy world, man, and it was a crazy world back then too. In the Cold War, it's like you got to have something to scare you that's not a nuclear bomb. You got to jump onto your desk thinking to help you. All right, but I think that's a purpose of horror sometimes.
Yeah, I get asked that at work. Like, there's a couple of people who aren't into horror fans, and they're like, "Why do you like horror movies? They have like killings, and they have people like possessed, and they." And I said, "Horror movies? What are you talking about? The world is scarier. The world we live in is scarier than any horror movie I've ever seen." So, like, to me, this is more an escape from like getting away from that horror, or getting away from a problem I'd be having, or a problem that, like, if I'm having a bad day, this is my escape to like get out of that and have some fun.
Yeah, when you think about it, how many horror movies have been made from headlines ripped from the paper?
Yeah.
The news is scarier than the stuff you go to the cinema to see. So,
yeah,
it's. But this, you talk about getting a crash course in horror by starting with this one. That's but somebody might want to have eased her into something.
Yeah,
else.
I know. Yeah, and then the second movie she did was Halloween, ironically. So.
Hey, you know that Father Merrin, originally they wanted to get Marlon Brando for that role.
Yes, I heard about that. I didn't know how much truth was there to that, but that would have been different too, because with his accent, I think Brando could have probably still pulled it off. But when we talk about these iconic characters in movies, it's hard for me to imagine someone else playing it without being critical about it.
Yeah, Father Cyrus was apparently a pretty popular character when the script was passed around, because there were some big names that wanted to play Father Cyrus. Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I heard that.
Paul Newman was another one. And I guess in an interview he did somewhere, he said he had an instinct not to hire a star. Like Marlon Brando was probably going to take the role if he was offered. But he said he wanted the movie to stand on its own and not be a Brando movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they do that for a lot of horror movies, even up to today, because, even the high budget horror movies today, they kind of want to save that for a lot of the CGI. So you don't get a lot of huge names in horror movies, even up to today. And if you do, a lot of times it's a cameo or. But I understand why, because like you said, Brando, is a huge name, and they don't want it to be a Brando vehicle. They want it to stand alone on its own and stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, and Nicholson would have probably stole the show too. I mean, he does with everything.
Yeah, even The Shining, I couldn't ever see anyone else playing that. Yeah, he ate up the scenery in that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean but The Shining was Jack Nicholson, and I know that probably chaps Stephen King's ass, but because it was a good book. But that movie, even though it didn't go by the book per se, that movie wouldn't have been that movie without. You know what? And I think King probably ought to give a tip of the hat to Jack Nicholson, the way he played that role, because that alone brought so many more Stephen King fans in. He probably saw book sales skyrocket even more after that.
Oh yeah,
I would imagine so. You mentioned CGI. The scene when Cyrus went in there, like the pea soup scene we were talking about.
Yeah,
and because they had to do that, all natural, so to speak, with the pea soup and the vomit and all that. But when he was in that room and it was cold and you would see their breath, what they had to do was they had to like freeze that freaking room. Everybody else on set was standing around like all bundled up in jackets and stuff, except the girl who played Reagan. She was laying there in like these, nightgown and stuff. And they had to make the room cold so you could see the breath. And then they would have to hurry up and shoot the scene so everybody sort of warmed back up because it was brutal. I mean, we're talking like well below freezing. And the only person who suffered through it was Reagan. The girl played Reagan.
Yeah, and can we give props to Linda Blair, by the way, because as a child actress to pull off a role like that, I mean, it's incredible to still watch it today. How good she did in that movie.
Yeah, and Friedkin was actually afraid because the role called for it's like somebody to play a 12-year-old girl, which she was like, I think she's like 14 at the time or something.
Yeah.
And so when she went into audition for this, her mother came with her.
Yeah.
And she wasn't really even invited. She wasn't on the list. She came in as just an unknown. And her mother came with her. And when she actually played the role, she was the only one who could pass what Friedkin wanted, because some of the other girls, she was so put together, straight A student, they decided they were going to get homeschooling for her on the set so they could have teachers there to continue her school. And she was so well put together and mature that he said if any of those other girls had done that role, it literally would have ruined them psychologically.
Yeah.
He was the only kid that came in that could pull this off. And the fact that like a 15-year-old girl, her mother wouldn't let her see the movie when it was done either.
Yeah.
But she didn't see it for years. And
I think she said she saw it when she was like 19 or 20.
Yeah, like a few years after. And so, I mean, it's a kind of wild how she got the role.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for her. And I think she probably got typecast. And she got like all these religious zealots. Do you remember reading about the religious zealots that were raising hell on her, like blaming her for everything? And she's like this kid that just role.
Yeah, it was just a movie role, but yeah, I remember that hearing about that.
Yeah, she had to have bodyguards go with her as a kid everywhere.
Wow.
Because she was getting death threats from like religious zealots and stuff for like glorifying Satan.
She was in another movie I really enjoyed. Was I think it was called Hell Night. That was really good. But yeah, she became typecast after that, and kudos to Ellen Burstyn, by the way, because another one that gets overlooked in this movie. Ellen Burke plays the perfect mother in this, like doing anything she can to find out what's wrong with her girl. But there's also a scene where it hits me hard when they can't figure out what's wrong with Reagan, and then he goes into that, the temporal lobe, and then she like freaks out on him, like she's done hearing about medical issues now. She's so done hearing because her daughter's going through all these rigorous tests and nothing's getting found out. And to me, that moment right there shows me that this is the best mother, because she's going all out. Like I said, she's going all out, spending all kinds of money, because she is like in the movie, she's an actress, so she has that money. But she could have just like took a couple people's opinions and then she's like, I want to find out what's wrong with my daughter, and she persists on it. And that's when they finally kind of sit her down, like, have you ever heard of like demonic possession? Like I like how they kind of subtly walked her into that one. And then she's like, you want me to bring my daughter to a witch doctor? That's what she says.
A witch doctor? Yeah, it's so funny. It's like, we're trying to pin down that lesion. Like, lesion? She's like levitating the bed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like how can this be a medical issue? She's leaping off the bed and her bed is totally getting off the ground. Like, how is this a medical issue?
That was that. What a wild man! Those wild scenes. You know, one thing I always wondered: how did? I mean, you know, that wasn't Linda Blair's voice. Who in the world did the voice of the demon?
I don't know.
That I mean, I'd like to know that. That's creepy because like they didn't have CGI or all those special effects, so somebody had to. I don't know if they drank a pack of whiskey or drank some whiskey and smoked a pack of cigars and started talking. I don't know.
I don't know. I know the couple scenes when they actually showed the face of Pazuzu.
Yeah,
that was Eileen Dietz who played that,
Ooh.
and like she doesn't. I don't think she ever has a voice in this movie, but like to this day, people like you hear the name Eileen Dietz, and you're like, "Hey, it's Pazuzu."
Yeah. But you know, nobody really knew who Pazuzu was till the next movie, till Exorcist 2, and then
which was a total train wreck, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
I like some scenes, but the movie overall, like to me, Exorcist 3 was the next best movie.
Yeah, that was a really good example. Yeah. I don't generally like sequels per se, but that was actually pretty good. But yeah, I guess you know when you think about it, when not Cyrus, but the Father Merrin at the very beginning was when he was over in Iraq or wherever, and they were digging up that artifact. He chiseled away all the dirt, and he had that small little thing of the carving of Pazuzu.
Yeah,
and then I guess they unearthed like the big statue, and he's standing in front of it. You know, and those dogs are going mad, fighting each other, and I wonder if that woke the demon up because Pazuzu. Actually, I looked it up. After I heard the name, I was like, what is this like make believe? But no, it wasn't. It was actually mythological and like Babylonian and Assyrian mythology. Yeah. Like it's the demon god of the wind or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, geez, man, they're really kind of breaking out some real names here. Okay. So I thought that was kind of creepy, but I wonder if like when he unearthed that, if he unleashed that demon, that's when it got into Reagan.
That's what I'm thinking too. Like, but it's a good point. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, when you were talking about it just now, I'm like, wow, like that makes a lot of sense because, you know, obviously nothing really happened before that, at least not on record. And, you know, when he found the artifact and then he's standing in front of the statue there, I'm thinking you're right. I'm thinking that was like his awakening. Like he was probably like in his own, I don't know, like deathly world at that moment. And then when they uncovered that, they probably like reawakened his spirit. And yeah, and then of course with you mentioned Captain Howdy, there was a nice little tribute to that name later on in a movie called Strangeland with Dee Snider. Snider, his character was named Captain Howdy. So I thought that was a nice little tribute because that's a disturbing movie too, by the way.
It was disturbing. I finally got around to seeing that.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, man, I used to go to Blockbuster when they had those. Dating myself here. And I saw this documentary. I rented this one time. It was back on VHS or something. It was called The Fear of God, 25 Years of the Exorcist. And they had a lot of interviews like back in, you know, with people in cast, and they talked about all the crazy stuff that happened. I don't know if you can find, maybe you might find that streaming on Tubi or something, but if anybody's a fan of the movie and want to kind of get like a back scenes, you know, that's worth looking up. 25 years of the Exorcist. It's called The Fear of God. Yeah. Nice.
I'll have to look that up. Because I don't imagine I've seen that. It doesn't sound familiar, but definitely a need to watch now.
Yeah. Let's put that on your Halloween watch list. That's
Oh yeah. We talked about AMC earlier, and these two movies are obviously always a kind of a staple. But you know, I don't like the fact that they change a lot of the movies a lot because I'm wondering one year that they might say, oh well, nobody really wants to watch Halloween, nobody really wants The Exorcist anymore. It's like, and then they gotta stop playing all modern horror. And I have nothing against modern horror, but to me, the 70s and 80s provided us with some of the best horror movies we'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some good ones since then, but as far as a decade long, they hit their stride in that era.
Yeah.
I think just being able to, it just connect with an audience in a certain way that really hasn't had a connection since. I mean, there's always going to be an audience for horror, but you talk about growing an audience back then and really having an impact on culture and society. Those movies did it, man.
Yep.
And thanks to Halloween and what happened in the '80s with that genre, just kind of building on that, it still just added to the debate and lore and fun. Just so much fun.
Now,
Okay.
I will say this. I mentioned this to Poe a couple of times, but there was a movie that was released this year that was actually a really good Exorcist movie called The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe.
Yeah, I watched it. Good movie.
Yeah, very good movie. And I'm a huge Russell Crowe fan from like Gladiator days. So like when I heard he was going to be in this, I was like, oh, I have to go. And I'm glad I did because although it's still not The Exorcist, it's a great addition to Exorcist movies. So
yeah, and I guess they got a new one coming out at the theater. I think it came out today, or tonight. It's The Exorcist, like twins or something, or
oh yeah, the Exorcist Believer. It's another sequel to and Ellen Burstyn has a part in it.
no way, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's about these two girls that go missing in the woods for 3 days. And then when they are found, they have no recollection of ever being gone that long. And then things start happening, and the father was like, "Is there anyone that can help us?" And someone mentions there are people in the over the years that have had to deal with this, and he sends them an address to go to. And when the door opens, it's Ellen Burstyn as Chris. She plays the same role, and she's like 81 or 82 now. So
wow.
Kudos to her for like, still recognizing how important the movie The Exorcist is to carry on.
Yeah. So. Well, that's pretty cool. So on the Woogie Boogie scale, like the fear scale, what do you give this one?
10.
Oh man.
10 to this day. It scares Before you give me your view, what did you think about the additional scene that was added years ago, the spider walk scene?
That was awesome.
Yes.
That was that was just one more shock factor, but like that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Especially when she gets to the bottom of the stairs and you see like her mouth, and it's like that fucking creeped the fuck out of me. I was like, man, I wish they kept that in the original cut, but we still end up getting it in the re-release. So
yeah, I saw the re-release in the movies at the theater.
Nice.
Whew. There weren't many people in there. Let me tell you, when I went to see this is a funny story, man.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm on a first date with this girl named Nikki. I'm in Cincinnati.
You took her to a date to see The Exorcist.
No, I was not going to take this girl to see The Exorcist. She was really I liked her. She was really smart, really intelligent, great conversations, well read. Like this is a great date.
Yeah.
And I said, we're sitting at Habit's Cafe in Oakley near Hyde Park. And I said, well, do you want to go to a movie? She said, yeah, what do you want to see? I was like, I don't know. There's some new stuff out. And she's like looking through her phone to see, I guess she had internet on her phone or whatever. It's like, okay, at this theater, over and like this theater was in like a bad neighborhood, man. Like the one, I'm driving to, I might get carjacked. So I'm like, are you sure you want to go over there? It's like, well, there's The Exorcist is playing. You want to go see that? And I'm like, I don't know if you want to see that. She said, have you seen this before? I'm like, yeah, it's a rough movie. And she like got all like left wing. Oh, I'm a girl. I'm not tough enough to watch this. And she went there like, and not just in a subtle way. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go see The Exorcist, Nikki. so we go see this movie. I go in, and it's a total black theater. Well, like me and her are literally the only white couple in this theater, and this place is packed. And anyway, we're watching this movie. During the course of the movie, so many of these people can't take this shit. They're getting up, they're leaving. And they're like, 3 couples left in the theater at the end of this movie. Me and Nikki, who had not said a word the entire time. And, of course, the 2 other couples. And when the lights went up and we stood up, her face, like blood drained out of her face. It was like, what did I just see?
Yeah.
You know? And then this guy stands up, and this girl, his black guy's date, she said, I cannot believe you took me to a movie like this. I told you 30 minutes ago for the 5th time I wanted to leave, and you wouldn't go. And she's pissed. And he smiles. She's like, what are you smiling about? And he points over at me, and he goes, I just had to stick around long enough to see it. That white dude's the only crazy MFer that was standing around here in a black theater watching this shit. And anyway, he just laughed. He was nice as could be, man. So he walked out. His car was like parked next to mine. His girl complained the whole time. Nikki, quiet. It's church mouse.
Yeah.
I got in the car and she looked at me and she goes, Swallow, just take me back to my car. She said, how could you not be shocked after watching that? I've told you I've seen that before. She goes, I don't care. Why did you take me to this? I said, you called out. It's like,
you picked it.
You picked it. I didn't want to. You insisted because you're tough. Never heard from Nikki again.
Oh, geez. I knew a girl named Nikki.
That might have been her first experience into the world of horror. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's probably her last.
Probably her last, yeah.
And I guarantee you she never forgot me.
she's gonna have a reaction channel just like Kat. And I hate horror movies.
Right. And she's probably sitting somewhere right now talking to her therapist, and this guy took me to this movie.
It scarred me for life.
Oh man. Anyway, it was an entertaining night, and I felt her tense at that spider walk. And it was not the kind of opportunity where a guy would put his arms around his girl, No.
Yeah. There's no way you can have a sexual or any kind of romantic experience watching The Exorcist.
No innuendo during that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, I enjoyed the movie.
Well, except when Reagan says, fuck me. Fuck me.
Gosh, I don't want to see that in my head, man. That's bad.
Oh, so the other day I was talking, before you give a rating, I was talking to a guy at work who loves horror movies. And I kept going like this. Why you do this to me, Debbie? Why you do this to me? And he's like, you gotta stop it. You sound too much like that guy.
Father, can you help an old altar boy? So funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So what was your fright rating or fear rating?
I'm going to get a Spinal Tap on this one. I'm going up to 11.
Oh, nice.
This was by far the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life.
Mr. Producer, I'd like to know your fear ratings on both of these movies too.
Fear ratings, huh? Yeah. I mean, both of these. The Exorcist is way scarier than Halloween, but Halloween it's kind of like, that film to me is kind of like, you have your list of films to watch during certain holidays, and Halloween, I always watch it. Of course, the original John Carpenter's, I watch it on Halloween every year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, I love that movie. I love everything about it. But, I'll give that one I'll give Halloween, like, I don't know. I'll give Halloween like a 7 or 8, with the scariness and the jump scares. For the time it came out, it'd probably be higher, but since I've been desensitized by everything, like, it's still cool. The score makes it, it gives you the feels, as they say. But Exorcist still is like, it's just, you can't touch it, man. You just can't.
Nope.
You could try to make the scariest movie, and that's why I laugh every time I'm like, Netflix is like, check out the scariest movie on Netflix, the scariest horror movie. It's like, no, it isn't. That you can't make a movie better than that. You can't.
Yeah, you can't.
Some have come close. I think more to me, like all new horror and stuff, it's just neat, or it's an original idea. Like we said, Art the Clown. That's an original idea, and I think that's a cool concept for a character. We don't know anything about him, and I hope that we continue not to know anything about him.
I'm glad you made that
scary. That I would point people in that direction. If they're like, I want a scary movie, like Exorcist, you seen it? No, go watch that. Like that's what you need to go. And that's always my number one answer. So,
yeah.
But no, you made a great point there, Poe, about not knowing about like a certain thing about a person. And I think that's where Rob Zombie went wrong with the remake, is because I was satisfied with not knowing about Michael except what his doctor told us. Like every time Loomis would say something about him, we can only imagine. We can't see it. But when Zombie came up with his, we get the whole backstory about Michael Myers, that he had a abusive, not a father, but like his mother's boyfriend.
Yeah,
stepfather. And then you have the slutty sister, and then you see Michael like killing animals. It's like, I didn't want to know all this. The actor that plays the young Michael Myers actually did a really good job, but like I was satisfied not knowing anything about Michael.
Well, you go from like Michael Myers in the first, and John Carpenter's original. Yeah, you're like, what the hell is this? Like, this guy just got out and he puts a mask on and he starts killing people, you're like, holy crap. And then you get a little bit more backstory in part 2. And then it just, as the series went on and they didn't do what they should have done, which is John Carpenter's original idea, I'm sorry to say. Yeah. But then you had Rob Zombie come in and do his take on it, which I appreciate because he was like going for more of the serial killer angle on it.
Yeah.
So you got to see the environment that shaped his mind. I thought that was an interesting take. I'm not going to dog on it whatsoever. I did enjoy it when it came out. But yeah, I the mystery kind of goes away, and then it goes into like, like he was born evil and did it, and then you got, all the other characters that come into play, and they just try to keep it alive.
But they're two different Michael Myers too. Like the one that's in the remake, you see the environment, obviously, like you said, is kind of how he was shaped. At the beginning of the original Halloween, all you see is this. He's like the most innocent looking kid ever. And you're thinking, like, what happened to this kid's mind that he just wanted to go upstairs and kill his sister?
Yeah, in a beautiful house in the suburbs. Yeah. And then he just like goes fucking ape on his sister brushing her hair. It's like, huh? I guess for the time that it came out, it was probably like, holy crap. Like it scared people to, like, holy moly. This kid freaking went and killed his sister and what's wrong with him and all this stuff. And then it kind of had that mystery behind it. Yeah. But the ones after, we get so many of them and over. And yes, I get it. I like the character too. I'm not shitting on it whatsoever. I like Michael Myers. I like the character, but I'm also at my wit's end. Like, we got enough of these. Yeah. Let's come up with a different character now. Let's find another.
I wish they kept Corey alive, because I kind of was interested in the Corey character. I didn't like Halloween Ends, but I was kind of interested to see the town now shift their attention to this kid who made a mistake by killing somebody babysitting. I would have been interested to see Michael Myers kind of pass the torch a little bit, and maybe have a new Halloween where Corey's now the one that the town fears because Michael's now dead. I would like to see if they could have pulled off something like that, but Corey's dead. Michael's in like 3,000 pieces now, and so
I shot him 6 times.
By the way, that's a great Halloween 2 line.
Yeah, man. Great films. Yeah. So what do you give The Exorcist on the scale?
Oh, shoot, man. I'm gonna go with yours, man. 11. I wish I could go higher. Like ridiculous. How about that? I'm just going like I'll give you a true number. I'll go 10. I'll go top. I mean, it's boom, the best.
That's the kind of movie that takes a couple of years off your life.
Yeah, it's still creepy. If you've never seen a horror movie, you go back and watch that, man. It's just like, what the heck? And it's still like, I know what's going to happen. I've seen it, I don't know how many times, but it still gives you that uneasy feeling. And that's what you want in your horror movies. And that, I think, is lost nowadays. Like that uneasy, like, I don't know. Like, could this happen? I don't know. Maybe it happened. And then you talk to people and are like, yeah, I think I heard a story over here and over there. And I'll tell you one thing, that because I've been going through the whole catalog and I'm going off the, it's not the actual series of Amityville. I'm going with anything Amityville right now. I've been watching the shit out of it, but I'll tell you what, close second is Amityville Horror. That was great. The first movie with James Brolin and Margot Kidder. I mean, holy shit. That was a great movie.
Yeah. And it also had a great follow-up. Amityville 2 was a terrific
Amityville
movie.
2, I wish they would say, it's like Amityville 2, and I'm like, but it's a prequel.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
Yeah.
But
the real story of the kid who got possessed and then
you know what? That kind of gave me an uneasy feeling between him and his sister. Like I was like, I don't.
Oh, hold on.
Where's this going?
Speaking of that, hold on. Let's see if I can find it. I have a picture of. Right here. The family of Amityville 2.
Oh crap!
It's signed by Diane Franklin.
Cool.
Who played the girl.
But I don't want to go too far into that because that would be a great episode later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it'd be great to cover it. But I did see a piece of crap one.
Amityville toilet.
I haven't even got to that one yet. I'll tell you what. The other Amityvilles, like it goes 1, 2, 3, and then 4 was made in the 90s, and 5 was around in the 90s. I think it was like Evil something, and then one was I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, those were actually, they're not great, but they're decent. And then when you get into the early 2000s of anything with Amityville, it was at that time when everybody loved doing the found footage stuff. And if anybody knows me, I'm not a huge fan of those. I'm not. I get it. It's cheaper to do it. But what do you think, Cyrus? I'm sorry. I'm talking too much. You hadn't said shit for 5 minutes. Because my dumb ass won't shut up. But
found footage stuff is not. I never was entertained by it. Even when like everybody was already big into Blair Witch, and I'm like, I went to the movies and saw it, and I think the best part about the movie was the stuff they already showed in the ad.
And like most films now. But I saw it. It was funny when I was doing my research on this. I was like, I want to watch like everything Amityville, anything with the title of Amityville in it. I'm going to watch for October. I'm going to watch one.
I think in
one
like
a week or 2 a week.
Like 100 Amityville movies now, or something like that.
Oh, dude! But I'm telling you, I'm in the stage of early 2000s, and everybody did a found footage Amityville horror. Amityville Asylum, Amityville this and that. I'm like, oh my god! But then there's a Tubi original that I want to get to.
There's a movie, I think it was like late 2000, early 2010s called Amityville Awakening, and it was Diane Franklin was in it again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
See,
so I
heard
that was pretty decent. I'd never seen it, but I heard it was pretty decent.
Well, I'm not there yet, but I'll let you know. But so far, early 2000s Amityville movies, big thumbs down on both of them that I saw.
Hey, before the night's over, I wanted to ask you guys a question. Since it's Halloween month, you guys have a couple of movies that's always your go-to during Halloween month you got to watch?
The Exorcist.
Other than the two,
and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. And Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Oh, okay. Well, you shouldn't get any hate for that.
I love that movie. I don't care about the fact that Michael Myers technically is in it, because there's a scene when Dr. Chalice is at the bar and he's asked the guy to change the channel because it's all this stupid shit. Yeah. And they show the ad for Halloween being on TV tonight, and you see Michael walking down the stairs. So Michael Myers is in it, bitches.
My rotation, of course, with the ones we just talked about, those make it in, but not till closer to Halloween is when those show up. My good ones. But my other ones that I kind of keep in rotation, Hellraiser 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Of course, Nightmare on Elm Street. I try to watch. Of course, the first one I always watch, but then I'll pick. I kind of like, like dealer's choice. Sometimes I'm like, I'll watch part 5 or part, whatever. And then of course, Friday the 13th part 3. I always like watching that one. That's one of my favorite ones.
Good one too.
Those are pretty much my go-tos. Oh, and Ghostbusters, I love that one. But yeah, those are kind of the ones that I'm guaranteed to watch every year around this time. But right now, I'm trying something different this year. That's why I'm going through all the Amityvilles. But then I also have my regulars. But I'm trying to branch out and watch different ones I've never seen. And that's what I'm looking for right now. Like some of the stuff from the 60s with Christopher Lee. I've never seen any of his Dracula movies. So I'm going to be watching those.
The horror of Dracula is one of the best Dracula movies ever.
Okay. Well, that's on the list now.
Yeah, that one's great.
Yeah.
And you got any suggestions for me, Cyrus? I'll watch it. And actually, I've been listening to that book. I found an audio book of that one you told me about. Blood Meridian. I've been listening to it.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's a great book.
So what do you got for me and everybody else? Actually, let's give it to everybody.
So I broke out some DVDs this year, right? So ones that I don't normally see, like the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't seen on AMC or any other channels. The original Fog. Got that.
Oh
one.
yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
that's a good one.
Love that one. Salem's Lot.
Oh yeah,
Salem's Lot's a great one.
Yeah, and just the other day I started a couple days ago, The Stand.
Oh, okay.
I have not watched that. I'll put that on my list.
But I'm like you, Poe. I'm jumping back on Tubi and I'm looking up all these old 70s classic horror films. Like I'm gonna watch some Dario Argento. Suspiria is on my list to watch.
Yes.
So I've got a few there I'm looking at. So, but yeah, I'm just gonna kind of branch out a little bit and watch things that's normally not on TV.
What is the one? Oh man. It's not. I think is it called Stage Fright? The one. It's one of those giallo films.
I think it is. That does sound familiar.
That one is good. If you haven't seen that one, if you're venturing down some Italian horror, that is a good one. I actually enjoyed that one, and Blood and Black Lace. That's a good one. So yeah, and then of course the one it's good, but it's also funny is the New York Ripper because I just love the Donald Duck voice.
That's funny. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. What's some old trauma films? But yeah, I'm like Rob too. I want to bust out. I got all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I want to watch those. Because some of those, like past 3, I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
So I want to go back and just watch them all in order some weekend and just.
I'm one of the few fans of Freddy's Dead. I actually enjoyed Freddy's Dead. A lot of people didn't like it, but another reason I love it is because they cast Alice Cooper as a abusive father. So
yeah. What part was that one?
That's part 6.
Part 6.
It's just called Freddy's Dead.
That's right. So, Freddy's Dead. Okay.
Yeah. You learn a little bit more about Freddy's past a little bit, like before he was burned. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like they don't let too much out. Like we talked about, like the unknown. I think is scarier, but they do kind of show like what kind of person he was, and.
Oh,
you actually get to see Robert Englund out of Freddy outfit. Like he plays the father with regular face, and so it's kind of cool. He played a dual role.
There's a movie I stumbled upon. Okay, and by the way, Mr. Nanners, hey Hey, no, we're doing a
Hey,
Howard
Mr.
Stern thing. But there's a movie I stumbled upon. I've never seen it, and it was made in the 90s, and it's called The Unborn.
Yes.
I
Okay.
believe I've heard that.
Okay.
I'm not,
I don't want to ruin it, but oh my God. The movie was interesting all the way through. I've never laughed so hard at the end of a movie. My wife, I had her laughing too because of my comments. But it's funny, but it's also like, what the fuck? Like, what were they thinking about that? I mean, it's just like, it's an insane ending. It's just insane. Like, you know what I'm talking about, Cyrus?
I'm gonna have to watch
I'm
that.
drawing a blank now. I thought it was. I'm thinking something else. But
oh no, The Unborn. Watch that, and then you come back to me with because
right.
it's not stupid. It's actually a pretty neat movie. But the end of it, you're like, what? Like, what is going on here? Am I seeing this? Like, how did they do this back in the day? It's so freaking. It's insane. I laugh, but I also
you got me intrigued now. You got me intrigued now.
It's on Tubi, The Unborn. Another one I want to recommend to you, gentlemen, and it's actually a really good. It's a good horror movie, and it's on Tubi. It's called Candyland.
Oh, okay.
Candyland.
Does it have anything to do with the game?
No, not at all. Not unless the game had a truck stop with prostitutes in it.
I saw that scrolling through the other day. And, there's a couple other classics.
It's a good movie.
If people want a couple other classics out of the 80s, Mortuary is.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And I don't know if this is 80s or 70s, but Pieces.
Pieces, yes.
Pieces is early 80s. I got to see that at the theater about 8 years ago. Oh, my God. When I lived in Ohio, we had a theater that every August, September, October, and into November, they would play like classic horror movies. And Pieces was one of the first ones I saw. I got to see Sleepaway Camp. I got to see the original Friday the 13th. And I got to see Creepshow, which was great on the big screen. So, yeah. And then of course I ended up moving, and I missed that theater till today because they still do it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the audience picks for us next.
Yeah, that's always fun because you'll get some comments. Rob got it last time, and it's been a while. Yeah. I think it's almost been 7 months, 8 months, something like that since the last time you did it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's now time to do some promoting.
All right.
So, Mr. Poe, do you have anything coming up soon?
Yeah, we got the Brew Crew coming to you Sunday morning. Another episode. Of course, we're covering everything in news and entertainment. Bringing it to you Sunday morning. Always a fun time. My buddy Paul Serda, he is the third chair now. Joey T, always a good time. We have a lot of laughs on that show. And then Jack Transmission will be will be on Tuesday next week. And me and Tyree were talking. We got our Halloween special for Near Do Wells coming up, Halloween Hoedown 3. Nice. And then these next coming months are going to be kind of touch and go. I think we're going to try to at least get one episode in a month because of the holiday season and everything. Yeah. And we're good. We're just going to do like a Thanksgiving special and a Christmas special. But what's coming up soon is Brew Crew, of course, on Sunday mornings. We try to do it every Sunday morning. And real quick, before I hand it over, I'm going to promote, because it's starting tonight at midnight, folks. All right. B-Movie TV, the 10th annual Halloween Horror and Sleaze Marathon begins at midnight tonight. Only on Roku. So put that on, and it's horror movies all day long.
Awesome.
Until the end of Halloween. So,
Mr. Alderwood, do you have any Gonzo Chronicles coming up?
I'm going to plan a couple episodes coming up over the next week or so. I'm going to talk about some like must-watch Halloween movies or horror movies for Halloween month. And I have my first and only book signing of the year. Haven't done one in about a year and a half.
Wow.
I'm going to be at on the 21st of this month at Big Walker Lookout. It's in Wythe County, Virginia. If you're on I-81, there's a scenic route. Just look for it when you're near Wytheville and drive up to the top. It's Big Walker Lookout. Climb the big giant fire tower. See for miles. Leaves are changing. I'm going to be there signing books.
Awesome.
Got live music. I am going to be bringing my Gonzo Chronicles series, but I'm also going to be bringing my horror. I'm going to be bringing the first of the Grave Legend series. I'm going to have Dark Places, the compilation short story book that I gave that one away on the show last time, actually, to a listener.
Yeah, you did.
I'm going to have
was that Anthony Owens?
Yeah. So
yeah, he's a good friend of mine now. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I went to high school with him. He's a good guy. He's a good cat, man. And then I've got I'm going to be having copies of Bedtime Stories for the Terminally Afraid there too, and my comedy Pot of Gold, which love that book. So hopefully I'll sell that out while I'm there. But I'll be having some of those up there and live music and some hot dogs and Fatty Kruger will be hanging out in the house.
Fatty Kruger. That'd be a hilarious spoof. The person run away and they're like, they look behind him. He's way in the back of the hall. Hold on.
And if anybody wants to read,
he sounds like he needs his own show too.
Fatty Kruger.
The Fatty Kruger show.
If anybody's interested in reading any of my short stories that are free stuff that I do from writing prompts, head on over to cyrusalderwood.substack.com. It's free, unless you want to pay me for, if you can be nice, give me like $5 a month or whatever. You can do the subscription thing, and some of the stuff I'll lock for subscribers, but most of it's free. So come on over.
Awesome.
Enjoy some fun writing and my bitching and ranting over there.
And then let the listeners know where they can find your podcast.
Yes, gonzochronicles.podbean.com if you want to listen on the computer. But if you have iTunes, you can just go to your smartphone and search wherever you look for your podcast at. I'm on Spotify and Amazon Play and then Google Play and wherever else. I think, was it Google? It was something music. I don't know. Hell, I'm everywhere. So just anywhere you listen to your podcast, just look up the Gonzo Chronicles. Tune in, have a good time. I don't do any of the Patreon stuff, so I'm not hitting you up for money. I will ask you to buy a book once in a while, by God. I'd like to sell at least a handful every month that pays for the podcast. I pay for it out of pocket.
There you go.
So hey, if you want to feel want to be nice and do Fatty Kruger a solid, go to look up Cyrus Alderwood on Amazon and pick one of your favorites.
All right. For me, I want to give a big shout out to the guys at Backwoods Horror first. We had a great time doing the Sleepaway Camp series. We did 1 and 4, and then we did 2 and 3. And Travis, we're gonna convert you to a Sleepaway Camp fan one way or another. So just accept it. And I also have a request for the Backwoods guys. They said they were gonna review a particular independent film involving Jason Voorhees.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. Jump on the Poe train and do some independent, shitty Amityville movies, and do some reviews of those too. But no, I love those guys. And for me, I mentioned it earlier. We'll be back in about 2 weeks, and you guys, right there, you that I'm pointing at, you guys are gonna be the ones picking the topic. So I will be putting it on my page. I'll be putting it on a couple of my horror groups, which a lot of you are already part of, and I'll probably be putting it on my Instagram and my Twitter. So I'll count them all maybe like a week before, and then let Mr. Producer and Mr. Alderwood know what the topic is going to be, because you guys want to see it. So
right.
Besides that, I got nothing much going on. Subscribe to Mahoney Massacre on YouTube. I am 5 subscribers away from hitting 500, so let's make that happen before the next show, guys. So
cool.
I just want to thank everybody who made comments, who are going to watch this now or on replay, and we love you guys. Thank you for all your support, everybody at the Dognut Media. We all appreciate you guys. So keep the love coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Much love.
Peace.